And away we go. It is the Nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearcatJournal.com. www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Go to the website, get the app. Go to the app. They will deliver right to your front door, pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop, or head down to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up. Save yourself 15% off of that Galactic goodness. It is out of this world. I think Aaron, hi Aaron. My dad hit me up today and he's like, what are you doing Friday? And I was like, well, we don't have any shows on Friday. So I'm kind of free on Friday. He said, you want to go to Galactic Fried Chicken on Friday? I said, yeah, I would like that. So we're probably going to go to Galactic on Friday. We're going to pump it up. We're going to save 15%, and we're going to enjoy some Galactic goodness. It's been a while. Been a minute. Hot minute since I've had some Galactic. So looking forward to it. So we've got a topic that we're going to get to, but if we're doing a daily sports show, there's only one thing you can lead with. And that is the bombshell that rocked the sports world, not the college football world, not the college sports world, the sports world. The greatest coach in college football history, one of the greatest football coaches in the history of the sport, Nick Saban, at 5:30-ish today, drops a bombshell.
Finally.
He has retired. He is done. He is walking away. And the biggest, most prestigious job in the sport is now open on January 10th. What a wild day. What a wild. I want to go kind of a different angle than we took. We took the reactionary angle of like who's next and what's next for Bama, whatever, on the BCJ pod. For me, Aaron, this changes the entire sport because Alabama and Nick Saban for a decade and a half were the final boss, right? Like, they won 6 championships in 12 years. Like, they were the final boss. If you were going to put the ring on,
they were dynastic, yeah.
If you were going to put the ring on, you had to beat the final boss. That's what I'm talking about. Like, if you're playing a video game, you play the video game for 15 hours, and then in order to beat the game, you have to beat the final boss. Nick Saban was the final boss, standing there waiting for you every year. And if you take that out, like, sure, right now, Georgia and Kirby Smart are the hot thing, the hot ticket, even though, guess what? They didn't beat the final boss this year. Bama got them in the championship game and went to the playoff, and Georgia didn't. So even this year, but like Georgia's kind of king of the hill, but that stuff has always been in college very volatile and very cyclical. Even if there was a dynasty, USC, Miami,
Ohio State.
Well, Ohio State, but Ohio State never won multiple titles in a close window.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I'm talking about
part of the picture, though. I mean,
sure, yeah. But I'm talking about specifically like at the end game. Like a dynasty, it requires winning multiple championships. Being great doesn't require. Yeah. So Ohio State has been great, but they haven't been a dynasty because they haven't strung together 3 championships in 5 years. But they were very cyclical, and there was usually a pretty steep decline when that dynasty ran its course. That didn't happen over the past decade and a half with Nick Saban in Alabama. And now you're going into the 12-team playoff era, and the giant is gone.
Good riddance.
It changes, for me, changes the entire dynamic of the sport.
Look, I'm happy it's over. I'm happy the whole run is over.
Sure, you've made it very clear. I don't care. Alabama is Alabama. I have a great deal of respect for Saban and what they've been able to accomplish. I just think from the perspective of now everything feels wide open, because it always felt like, yeah, sure, there are a bunch of teams jockeying to climb up the mountain, but Bama was always standing there at the top of the hill. Yeah. And without Saban, they're not.
I got real tired of hearing him bitch and moan about the NIL, and I feel
No. See, I think you mistook that. He was not bitching and moaning about NIL. He was warning you about NIL.
And that may be your stance on it. My stance is he was pissed that other teams were able to catch up by paying their players, as he had been under the table for a long time.
But they didn't catch up.
I mean,
they were still the standard.
When was the last time Alabama won? People caught up now that NIL became a thing. People caught up, though, now that NIL became a thing.
No, I don't. I disagree with that. I don't think they caught up. Maybe they closed the gap a little, but they won a title. They played in the championship game and they lost in the semifinals. They're still the final boss. They're still. They didn't go away.
I mean,
what you're saying.
I think they will now.
Well, yeah, because Nick Saban's gone.
Correct.
That's my point. It changed the entire dynamic of college football.
He was coming down the hill, though. I think the writing was on the wall that he was not going to figure it out. I don't think he was going to figure it out.
He figured it out. They were getting the best players still. They still had the best roster.
We're seeing Saban do it. We saw Saban do it. We're seeing Tom Izzo do it. We're seeing Coach Calipari do it. None of these guys know how to maneuver this new wave of NIL.
Saban did. They still got the best players. They still got the best transfers.
That's because they were Alabama. You're still going to get dudes. Don't get me wrong, but you're also not
arguing then.
That
he was navigating it. He was better at it than anybody else.
They still weren't getting all the best dudes like they once were. People were
getting a lot of them.
People were able to catch up, though, and that was pissing him off.
They did.
Look, if NIL had been a thing the entire time that he had been there, I don't think you would have seen them even in the top 10 every single year in, year out.
He was by far and away the greatest college football coach of all time. He won 7 championships.
I think that the system was rigged, and he was at the top of that rigged system.
I think your take is a disaster, but
college cartel.
Yeah, and they were still paying more than anybody for NIL.
They were paying people long before NIL, though, and that's
of course. Okay,
that's the cartel part of it.
Okay, but he wasn't like there's a lot of places that were paying players that when NIL started, all of a sudden everybody else was doing it, and they came back to the pack. That didn't happen with Alabama.
I think they were coming back down to earth.
Aaron, they won a championship. They played in a championship
game. I hear you, but they were coming
in the semifinals.
They were coming down the hill.
They just beat Georgia in the SEC championship game.
Okay. I still think they were.
I just don't. You can say they're coming down the hill, but there's no evidence of that.
They didn't win.
Okay, you're going to lose at the top of the sport. You're going to lose a game here and there, and the team they lost to is not like Michigan did it the old school way. Harbaugh didn't have a bunch of transfers and a bunch of NIL money. That was great. They had some. Everybody does now, but they didn't build their team on that. That was old school. We're just going to line up, and our guys up front are going to be better than your guys up front. We're going to kick your ass. That wasn't the changing world of college football. They lost to might be, Aaron, the last time we'll ever see a champion look like Michigan looked.
Perhaps. Yeah.
So I disagree, but again, neither here nor there. College football is going to look completely different because Alabama is not living in their palatial estate at the top of the mountain. There'll be some people that get to the top of the mountain and they'll move in and they'll build a nice family home there. But Alabama was there so long, the place took up the whole top of the mountain is my point. And Saban gone, 12-team playoff in. Are there still going to be? Is there still going to be a separation at the top of the sport? Yeah. Usually every year there's 2-3 teams that are pretty significantly better than anybody else most of the time. So I don't know that you're going to see a ton of upsets of those teams, but I think like 4 through 12 is pretty close, which means you're going to see a bunch of chaos.
What's an upset going to look like right now, though? As you have a new Big Ten next year, you have a new SEC
Right.
next year, a new Big 12 next year, and all of a sudden you're gonna have an awful lot of just teams
potentially
eating
no ACC
teams eating teams in their own conference, and it's going to be a lot of cannibalism going on.
Well, yeah, it's going to look more like the NFL playoffs where, on a 17-game NFL schedule, greatness is 14-3.
Well, I mean, we saw this season, if you want to make the NFL comparison, you saw the AFC North was a juggernaut, Cincinnati finishing fourth at 9-8, but you also have a team winning the conference in the Tampa Bay winning their conference at 9-8. So, I mean, weird things happen.
Unfortunately, you're not going to see anybody win the Big Ten at 7-5. I don't think.
No, but I think you might see one of these conferences, whether it be the Big Ten, the SEC, with 2 or 3 losses at some point.
Yeah, I think now you're going to be like Georgia might still end up being Georgia for the short term, where they're 11-1 or whatever. But I do think you're going to see like the possibility of like the second best team in the SEC has 3 losses, 2 or 3 losses.
Yeah, I don't think that's anywhere near out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, and same for the Big Ten.
Sure.
The team in the Big Ten championship game, whatever, could very well be 9-3. So it's fascinating, but great career. Best college football coach ever, and he has exited stage left. I will give him credit, Aaron. He did not go Coach K. He did not go, I'm retiring next year so everybody can kiss my ass.
I will say that was probably the most humble thing he ever did, was just bow out gracefully as opposed to the goodbye tour. So
he didn't have a press conference. He didn't do an interview. He scheduled a team meeting at 4:00. He told his team, and he gone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would have really put the successor to him in a bad spot if he had a goodbye tour all season. And who's committing to that?
Yeah,
nobody. Unless you name a successor, would have been a terrible situation. It's still not great, but
and like I said on the BCJ pod, boy, I don't know if I'd take that job. It's the best job in the sport. Following Saban, I don't know, fam. I don't know.
Wants to be the guy following the guy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Before we get out of here, you want to talk about another topic?
I wanted to bring this up because we were basketball exclusive last night and wanted to give him his flowers. But Aaron Smith did commit yesterday, the wide receiver from UTEP. We didn't even mention that yesterday as we were basketball heavy for obvious reasons. But Cincinnati does get its eighth transfer in 3 days yesterday with the addition of the receiver.
Yep.
Speed guy.
Fast.
Better be when you're what, like 5'8", 5'9", 5'10" with cleats.
Easy.
Just saying. The other topic I have, there was an article today from ESPN written by Dan Murphy. We've not covered him before in this space, but the NCAA approves new NIL rules to help athletes protect themselves. I think that the title of this article alone, I love that protect themselves is in quotes. I think it should be in finger quotes if that was a thing, because the only people that these rules seem to be protecting is trying to set up the universities for protection. Essentially what they want to do is make suggested payments for the collectives and the athletes so that people aren't, I guess, holding the universities hostage with these crazy requests for money. Well, not the universities, because the universities aren't involved in these negotiations.
Sure, yeah.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
Or at least that's how the rules are set up. But they want to offer almost like what the NFL does with the proposed draft dollar slots, where wherever you're drafted, you're supposed to make X amount of dollars. That's what this sounds like, in a sense, where they're kind of offering what you should be paying players and what the market is for players. I don't really know what the hell point of any of this is, other than to kind of try and potentially. I think they're at the end of the day, the NCAA is really just trying to avoid making these players employees for as long as they can.
But that's why
they've requested Congress.
Stand up.
Yeah, they've requested Congress to step in to try and allow them an antitrust exemption, which, if that ever goes through, that's a huge loss for players and kind of goes against everything that's been set in place since the O'Bannon trial.
Yeah. I don't think the Supreme Court will ever go for restricting market value unless they become employees, they have a union, and there is a negotiated labor agreement between the NCAA and the players. Until that happens, the NCAA is never going to go for the NCAA, or the courts are never going to go for the NCAA just unilaterally deciding, like, this is
quarterbacks make this much money, receivers make this much money.
No chance. What they are, of course, what they're trying to do, Aaron, is take some of the power back, if not all of the power back, because they don't.
At the end of the day, that's what they want. They always want all of the power.
Right. They don't have any really right now. I just don't like. You're angling to try to do things that the courts will see as progress. But if those things include, such and such collective wants to pay such and such kid this amount of money and they're not allowed, some of what is proposed is positive in allowing the schools more access to work with these collectives so that these collectives aren't rogue.
But the schools are still not supposed to be the ones at the front of the whole negotiation process. Okay, sure. We'll just be counsel back here in the back. Right.
Right. Yeah. We believe you.
Speaking of positive, though, I'm going to read probably most of this paragraph here. There was something very positive to come out of all this. Among other items, the council also voted Wednesday to adopt stiffer penalties for individuals who violate NCAA rules. Moving forward, coaches who are suspended will be required to stay away from their teams on days between games, in addition to missing games themselves. Of course, this comes on the back of everything going on with Jim Harbaugh. Schools who hire coaches with show cause penalties from past violations could receive penalties, and the NCAA plans to create a public database of individuals with a history of level 1 or level 2 violations. I think it's good for the sport, especially when you have coaches who get in trouble at a school like, Kelvin Sampson, and then they just move to another school, whether it be Indiana, whether it be Houston, and just get to start with a clean slate, while the school that they were previously at just lives in sanctions.
Yeah. It's the NCAA. This is what they do.
Pretty much.
Yep. All right, there you go. That's the nightcap. We will we'll see you tomorrow night. Take a look at what is a fascinating week in the Big 12, including the Knights of Gold pulling a major upset tonight. And then a look ahead at what's to come on Saturday. So that'll do it. We'll see you tomorrow night. That's the nightcap, brought to you by Galactic Fried Chicken, right here on BearCatJournal.com.
See ya!